Hey team, how are you? And welcome to The Experience with Rehman Cee, where we talk to real people about real stories on real life. And today I've got Andrew Murphy, who's in Victoria, Australia. Andrew, how are you, brother?
Good, mate. I'm good. And it's Anthony, but I get called Andrew all the time, so it's all
No,
good.
it's my mistake. I better change it here while I can. I apologize.
All right. That's all right. It's happens all the time.
It was just my rush. I had Anthony everywhere else apart from where I needed it, you know?
That's okay, mate. That's okay. How's things on your end?
You up?
How's everything on your end?
Everything is fantastic. So I'm in North Carolina, and it's about 10 o'clock in the evening here. So it's fantastic. So my apologies, Anthony, for that. We'll get that taken care of. So let's get straight into it. So what's your message to the world, brother?
Mate, my message to the world is, is do you, and life's short. Don't take it for granted, and make an impact. Try and be yourself through all the craziness that is happening in the world around us, especially during these current periods. So I very much a firm believer in going out there and building the life that you want, and taking ownership.
Yeah. So how did you develop this philosophy? Because everybody's not got this point of view, right? Sometimes people are lost in themselves. Sometimes they don't have clarity. So talk to me a little bit more about your journey, how you got here. And the way I'd like to talk about that is, let's go back to day one. Let's go back to Genesis. Your mum and dad. Talk to me about your mum and dad. How was their parenting style with you? What is style?
It's funny. It's not until you sort of grow up yourself and get a little bit older and become a parent, as I have, that you can look back and realize how much goes into being a parent and the sacrifices and everything that need to be made. But yeah, my mum and dad, I feel very grateful. I'm the oldest of 8 children. So large Catholic family growing up, and mum and dad were, they were always there, always, working as a team, providing, the best possible life that they could for us.
You're the eldest of 8 kids. Is that, did I hear you right?
Correct.
Wow.
Oldest of 8. So yeah, my mum was a stay-at-home mum. Basically, she also homeschooled us as well. So we had a large homeschooling family, which mum took on that massive task. And there's definitely a lot of sacrifice involved in homeschooling that many children. And my dad was a business owner himself. And
what was his trade?
So it was the business is called Murphac, and it's in the food industry. It's a flour mill, grain producing company that basically takes all of your grains and seeds and produces them to a point where manufacturers can create products like breads and cereals and muesli bars and all that sort of thing. So he's always been involved in that business and had a great work ethic. And really fortunate to have a very stable childhood thanks to my parents.
Yeah. So talk to me about your grandparents.
My grandparents, love my grandparents. There's only one grandparent alive now out of the 4. So my grandparents on my mum's side, again, very hardworking, down to earth, on the land type of people. And I was about 13, I think, when my grandfather, my pa, passed away, and then my nan on my mum's side passed away about probably around 10 years ago now, 13 years ago now. So it's been a while. Recently, only 2 years ago, lost my grandfather on my dad's side, and he was an amazing man as well. Had a great sense of humour, great work ethic. really a family man, had 6 children himself. And then my grandmother, who's thankfully still alive, doing very well. Very much a traditional, by the book, take care of people, grandmother. And again, very grateful to have those sort of people in my life growing up.
Yeah, and do you see the connection between your grandparents, how they and their personalities, and how they raise your parents?
Yeah, and definitely the flow-on effect, and how that shaped my parents as well. So you can definitely see that, as I mentioned before. The older you get, looking back, hindsight, and all of the nuances that come with becoming an adult and taking on extra responsibilities. You can definitely see how they shaped and molded their children. And
Describe it. How would you say it was?
I feel like, again, very, very, very down to earth, very, very, very loving, hardworking in a sense that, providing a secure lifestyle for many children on both sides. So I think very grateful to have that stability. I think that word stability is kind of very important in today's day and age, where things like divorce rates are so high, and there's so much that children have to deal with growing up, and so that's something that we're very grateful for.
So how did your parents meet?
Mum and dad, good story. Probably not one we talked about very much, but they were from neighbouring towns, I suppose. So basically, they kind of crossed paths. Small rural location, and dad obviously took a fancy to mum, and it sort of all flowed on from there. But they met when they were quite young. Sort of, I think they knew of each other through high school. But then it was as they were starting to move into adulthood themselves that their circles came a little bit more intertwined, and there was definitely some extended family from the area as well. Sort of, everybody knows everybody kind of thing. So I think that's sort of how that relationship started.
What is it like to be the eldest of so many kids?
Yeah. Very fortunate. It's fortunate to have grown up in a large family. There's never a dull moment. And I think it definitely shaped a lot of my own work ethic and care factor for people. Sort of a nurturing vibe, I suppose, because having that many siblings, there was, I spent a lot of my time day to day looking after siblings, helping them, cooking, cleaning, all that sort of thing. And it takes a lot of work to run a household, as my mother did. So I definitely took it upon myself to help as much as possible in that sense, in the day to day. And I think that definitely sort of shows these days in my life. Like I love being in the kitchen, providing for my own family now, my young family, and definitely have a very a nurturing side to myself, I think, where I always want the best for people, and want them to feel safe and secure as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes when you're at the top, you have that kind of position of authority, but did you exercise that, or it doesn't sound as if you were exercising it from authority more than nurturing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think, I don't feel like I did, or recall, lording it over, I suppose, in that sense, or being, authoritarian. I think it was more trying to provide a good example, set a good example, and lead by example too. And with a busy household like that, and siblings from my brother down from me, he's 3 years younger than me, and then it's on down that line. So a wide variety. You know, there was basically always a baby in the house, and you know, it was definitely more of a caregiver type role, I suppose, being the oldest.
Yeah. What has your father taught you?
Many things. A lot of life lessons, I suppose, but more just around, again, setting example, like, you know, having a good work ethic, being honest, providing for people, you know, not putting yourself first all the time. You know, then there's lots of other things that maybe I would have liked to have learned more on when I reflect back. He's very good with his hands. He's very much a tradesperson, an engineer, you know, a builder. And, you know, that's what he does in his day-to-day role for work. And, you know, he's a mad car mechanic and those sort of things. And I wasn't necessarily inclined to be, you know, as mechanical as he was, I suppose. Like, basically, you know, if he wanted to build something, he could build it, whether it was timber, metal, you know, automotive, whatever it was, right? He's one of those type of people. So looking back, I could probably have you know, spent more time investing, you know, taking on his knowledge in those areas. But yeah, definitely grateful to have a solid father figure that was always there for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always about interest and aptitude, right? I mean, as much as you want to hang out, you know, if you don't like soccer, you're not going to play it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what about your mum? What has she taught you?
Mum has taught me, I think, just the importance of, you know, being a good person. I'm trying to find all the right words for this. You know, whether it's integrity or, again, honesty, you know, being a good person. And again, by example, just the sacrifices that she made and again, like, it suited her in a sense that, you know, she was happy to be, and she wanted to be, a stay-at-home mum. You know, she wasn't necessarily career-driven in that sense. So, you know, her life, you know, she always wanted kids. There was a time there where she didn't think she was going to be able to have them. So, you know, if you asked her, she would feel, you know, she'd say that she's very blessed to have been able to have 8 children. But yeah, again, a great nurturer, you know, brought us up to be good, honest people. And I think that'll serve us for the rest of our life.
Was she the eldest, and was your father the eldest?
My father was the second eldest out of 6. My mother, it was only her and her brother, and she was the youngest.
Okay.
So yeah.
Interesting. So tell me, what do you think the basis of good self-esteem is?
It's a good question. I think when it comes to self-esteem, especially in today's day and age, and you know, I work in the marketing industry, in the social media world, right? And there's never 100% upside with anything, right? So, you know, as powerful and useful that, you know, social media and digital marketing is, it also has its negative sides, which, you know, as we know, you know, often can attribute to people's mental health or their self-esteem, or, you know, their purpose in life and things like that. So I think in order to have good self-esteem, you need to have you know, a level of self-awareness to know that, you know, where you are in life, you know, that you don't have to compare yourself with other people, and, you know, you need to do you in a sense, rather than trying to pander to people's expectations, or, you know, be too concerned about what other people think. And I know, as humans, the herd mentality of, you know, wanting to fit in and be accepted and all that sort of thing, I think sometimes that notion can get skewed from being yourself and you know, having self-esteem in who you are and what you want to do, rather than pandering to what society says you should be doing, or, you know, what your peers are doing. And I think that comes back to an education standpoint as well. Like, you know, I've got young kids now, and, you know, it'll definitely be a focus. Pardon?
How old are your kids?
My kids are 4 and almost 2.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm very conscious of the fact that, again, shaping and molding as my parents did, but maybe diving into different areas that are more relevant now in the society that we grow up with. So with my children, you know, self-esteem and happiness and doing you is definitely something that will actively be working with them on, and just helping them navigate, you know, the world that we live in now. You know, making sure that they do have good levels of self-worth and self-esteem, and they know that, you know, if there's something out there that they want to achieve, then by all means, you know, give it a crack.
Do you believe you have good self-esteem?
I believe I do, but I believe it could probably be even better in a sense. You know, I have doubts. You know, I second guess myself, as we all do. I think there's another fine line there around, not, you know, accepting the fact that you are going to have doubts, and, you know, at times imposter syndrome is a real thing, right? And not trying to become a robot in a sense, like embracing the humanity, I suppose, that comes with, you know, having doubts and all that sort of thing. So I'd like to think I have good self-esteem.
So do you believe that self-esteem was something that you were born with, something that your parents put in place, or do you think the way or the fact that you were homeschooled had any influence?
I think little bits of all of it. I think, you know, obviously the environment that you grow up in has such a huge impact on your future life and how you are as a human being. So I think definitely parts of that. But as I get older, as I learn more, as, you know, I have a good thirst for knowledge and self-improvement and things like that. And I think that, a large part of my, you know, cognition now is around the self-awareness of pushing yourself further and improving on yourself, and not settling in a sense. So always, you know, looking to learn, looking to become more self-aware, looking to tap into, you know, our humanity and practices like meditation and mindfulness and all that sort of thing, you know, to be the best possible human that you can be.
Yeah. So, you know, was it a shell shock? At what point did you move out of homeschooling to get into regular schooling, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah, so my story, I was homeschooled right through to year 11, and I, in order to get into university, which I was, you know, that was my goal at the time, I suppose. In order to do that, to go from homeschooling into university, there's certain exams that you have to pass. Obviously, not being in like the public school system and getting an 8R score, or whatever the equivalent is around the world to give you your, you know, your university entrance scores. Right. So we did that, and got successfully into university. But the story there is that, again, I didn't necessarily have a career in mind. I entered into a Bachelor of Health Sciences and Exercise Science because I was, you know, I loved my sport, loved health and fitness. And at that time, I'd be more than happy, you know, driving some sort of career in that area, in that industry, which was the reason I chose that course. But 10 months into university, my dad gives me a call, and he says, "Oh, look, we need to hire a quality manager for the business, and we wanted to run the opportunity past you before we go and look for a possible candidate." And to add a little bit of context to that, obviously I'd been working in the business since I was, you know, 15, part-time, here and there after school, that sort of thing, and had even been working there full-time prior to getting into university. So I knew the business very well, and took about 2 weeks to decide, am I going to drop out of university? Am I going to go back and join the family business, or am I going to pass? And I ended up dropping out of university and moving back to the family business.
And then what happened?
Then the next
anymore, huh?
Then the next 10 years happened. So I spent the next decade working in the family business. And again, like so much of that shaped my ability to now, be successfully running my own business. But yeah, it was a great 10 years. A lot of people, often wince, you joined the family business, that can sometimes have some negative consequences. But again, my family's a fairly tight-knit unit. Everything's professional, and it was a great fit, for well over a decade there, and very grateful for that opportunity. Secure, stable employment, learnt lots, and that really fostered my love of business, and kind of set fire to that entrepreneurial spirit, I suppose you'd call it, in order to now run my own business.
What did you learn?
Business is not easy. It's not a walk in the park. It takes time, it takes dedication, it takes commitment, it takes work. Managing people, I was the quality manager for several years, and then moved into a general manager type role. And the company had, upwards of 10 staff to 15 staff at any one time. So there was a large portion of people management involved in that, and learning how to be a leader, work with different personalities and different types of people in order to get the job done. And everything else that comes with it, being in a small business and wearing so many hats: sales, marketing, customer acquisition. The list goes on. So lots was learned. Yeah,
it's a very general kind of good overview. You definitely wouldn't get that kind of opportunity to be able to go into multiple functions if you're in a regular career. So definitely fantastic getting an overview on that. But why would you leave? I'm sure your father would want you to kind of carry on with the business and let him retire in peace.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, that that was the goal.
It must have been a pretty traumatic and kind of. If you took 2 weeks to accept the job, you must have taken 2 years to kind of figure out how you're going to get out of it.
Well, it was almost like that. It was almost like that. But no, look, the story around that is that I was the succession plan for the business. So my father and my uncle, my dad's older brother, were the owners of the business. They took it over from my granddad. My granddad started it. They started working in the business. So 3 generations of family. I was the 3rd generation working in the business. And I was a succession plan, and I think that's one of the key reasons they offered me the role, back at the start, as that future planning. But the story turned from being the succession plan to something changing within me a little bit in terms of where I wanted to go in my future, I suppose, just based off certain events, but also very heavily influenced by the birth of my first child, and there were lots of factors that went into it, but one of them was the travel and time. It was a 45-minute commute to and from work, which isn't extravagant for many people, but obviously having a child changes things a lot. It changes your outlook on life. It changes how you operate as a human being in many senses as well. And I looked at how I was spending 8 hours a week commuting to and from work, and all of a sudden I had this this other child, in my life, this other person that I wanted to be spending the maximum amount of time with, and it was not so much about leaving the family business, but on requesting that potentially reduce hours, maybe work more from home, that kind of thing. Just wasn't going to be feasible for the business at the time, and I think that's sort of what started to plant the seed of it's potentially not going to be the right fit moving forward. So that's kind of what started that transition of moving out of the family business. It didn't turn ugly or anything like that. It was just it was a transition period over time where we decided that it was either stay or leave. Made the decision to leave, and then there was a sort of a 6 to 8 month transition period where other arrangements were made. I found some part-time employment elsewhere, and we ended up moving out of the family business in 2017.
Yeah. So how was that transition?
Yeah, again, very fortunate, because the way that it worked, I was working in the family business, and I had the side hustle as well, which wasn't, at the time, it wasn't something that was potentially going to be, a career that I would move into. It was nowhere near that point, but that was in existence. And then I was fortunate enough to get a job opportunity, part-time job opportunity with a supplies company that worked with us. So we knew each other quite well. They were looking for somebody in marketing, in sales, and they were able to offer a part-time position, which I was able to move straight into, which their business was 5 minutes around the corner from where I live. So everything kind of aligned very, very, very easily in that sense, and made the transition out of the family business much more frictionless, I suppose.
Right. I mean, I was more thinking in terms of the transition into you coming into a job, not being part of that business, and your exposure and experience to these kind of new people. How did you navigate that, handle that?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I think, again, I was fortunate that another family-owned business who were very, very treated their staff extremely well, right? Like they knew that their staff made their business, that made them possible. So they definitely invested in their staff in many different ways. From a financial perspective, from a work-life balance perspective, from everything that you would sort of wish for. So again, it was a smaller, tight-knit company. It wasn't a large conglomerate or anything like that. So in that sense, it was fairly easy, again, to make that transition. But then also having a lot of scope and freedom within my role to do the types of things that I was good at and to do the types of things that I enjoyed doing. So they needed somebody who could help them take their marketing to the next level. And it was sort of beyond their experience and their knowledge. There was a lot of freedom with that role. So again, similar to working in the family business, where it was very much around, self-motivation and driving your position in the business. It was very much a similar type feeling with the new company that I worked for because of all those factors.
So how did you meet your woman?
Well, that was way back in our younger years, because, as I mentioned, I was homeschooled, and she coincidentally happened to be homeschooled as well. So we had a homeschooling group, a homeschooling day once a month, where multiple families from around the region would all come together. Bit like an excursion type situation, I suppose, for a school. We'd all come together, and that was, again, our families kind of knew each other from family circles, etc. So I was very, very young, very early days. The youngest memories I have were around 10 years old, I believe. And over time there was an instant attraction there as well, and teenage sweethearts, I suppose you would call us. And it all sort of fell into place from there. We lived within an hour of each other, so growing up and becoming adults ourselves, we were able to spend more time together and then foster that relationship.
So have you experienced any trauma?
Depends on what your definition of trauma is. And I feel like not really. I'm lucky to have, both my parents are alive, all my family's happy, healthy and well, financially stable, and consider ourselves very fortunate. So, there is no sort of, I don't have a tough backstory, an unfortunate child or anything growing up like that. So, in terms of trauma, I don't think so. No. So
where are you now?
So now we're based in Shepparton, Victoria, which is a regional town about 2 hours north of Melbourne, in Australia. And this is home. This is the base. This is where I operate the business from, and it's where the majority of our family and extended family resides as well. So we love Australia, love the country, and we're very fortunate to be where we are. The pandemic is a little worse here at the moment than it is in other parts of the country. But that's something we're working through, and still very grateful to live in Australia.
Right. Have you travelled outside Australia?
I have travelled outside of Australia once internationally, in the sense that I went on a 3-week trip to England, Ireland. That was back probably about 9 years ago now. So I got a little taste of culture. Had a great time. With my surname being Murphy, we definitely have a lot of Irish roots. So in a sense, we went back to the motherland, and that was a fantastic experience. And then outside of that, not really, because Tasmania, you'd classify that as Australia. So it's just a bit of a jump across the ditch. So basically one international trip to England and Ireland.
Yeah. So I was asking where you are now. I mean, you saying you've got your own company. How did that take place? And, what's your state of mind with where you are with this company?
So again, it was a natural progression, I feel, in the sense that, apart from that short period where I did work for the company part-time, I've always worked for myself, in a sense that in the family business, there was so much freedom and flexibility, and the onus was on me to perform, in a sense, and manage a company. So I think there's always been a bit of a drive there for me to do my own thing, to run my own business. Extremely passionate about business, about growing businesses, and that's formed. Coupling that with a love of technology and social media, obviously the perfect marriage with that was a digital marketing agency, a digital growth agency. And after leaving the family business, the part-time opportunity that I had with employment then allowed me to continue to work on Attention Media, which is the name of the company, bring on more clients, help more people, and it just continued to grow. Right, it was a real passion at that point. After leaving the family business, to create something of my own, to drive forward, to have that independence, to have that challenge, and that's been a driver ever since. And it's manifested now to the point where I've been able to go full time and have staff of my own, employ other young local people, and it's a big driver for me, and we've got big plans moving forward. But it was a sort of a natural progression of doing what I loved and helping people, and then that turned into a business.
Are you going to homeschool your kids?
It's a good question. It's a good question. It's something that my wife and I are talking about, and it's definitely not locked away as yet. We'll continue to ponder over that and make the right choice.
Sounds like you're not gonna.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
I think the decision has already been made, because I feel if you're contemplating on it, it's basically you have doubt in what you already had. Do you get what I'm saying? So yeah, so the fact that there's room for opening means that it's a high probability. It's
definitely,
70-80%. So talk to me about who you are. What is your identity right now?
I'm a family man, first and foremost. Family is everything to me. Very grateful, very fortunate to have a young, fit, healthy family that's very supportive. So they come first and foremost. And then beyond that, I'm a businessman. I really thrive off helping our clients, helping other businesses succeed. Helping people, achieve things in business, in marketing, just at a fundamental level where, they may not have thought it possible. A really gratifying part of what I do is being able to take something that is fairly new and evolving and, innovative technologies, and to be able to apply that to businesses who, for the most part have been around for a long time and have always done it that way. To be able to bring in this new technology and help them grow their business. So again, I think that kind of ties back into the nurturing nature that I feel I have having grown up that way, and being able to help other people succeed. So that's a big part of who I am.
A lot of guys, they pursue, they try and achieve, meaning that they spend a lot of their time trying to build a career and get very intense into that. No doubt you did that with your family business, but typically, when the kid is young, infant, 0 to, let's say, 7, they're not really that aware whether you're around or not. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'd probably tend to disagree with that in a sense, because different levels of awareness, obviously, when they are very, very young, but at the same time, there's a bond there. There's a bond between a mother and a child, and there's the exact same bond there between a father and a child. If you are putting yourself in that position and you want to have that relationship and that bond, and part of the reason for leaving the family business, starting my own business, being able to have that flexibility was and is so that I can have the time in order to be there for my children. And I, as you mentioned, it's a very it's a very done thing where the male figure is the one that spends the majority of the time working, etc. And many people have stories, obviously, where they have a hardworking father who they didn't spend a lot of time with growing up. And I fundamentally believe that I can do both, in a sense, for being there for my kids and having a very deep and intimate relationship with them growing up, because I don't want to miss a second of that. But also, in order to provide a lifestyle, you have to have some kind of financial ability behind you, and very grateful that I've been able to build a business which allows that to happen. And I can build that relationship with my child, my children, while also having the career in a sense.
So it may be a cultural thing, but it's more common, I would imagine, to have homeschooling in Australia with the distances than say in America or somewhere else, right?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I don't know any stats or figures off the top of my head, but there's definitely a A lot of the curriculum and things that we used as part of our homeschooling, came from America. There's a lot of there's a great framework there, which Australia in years gone by, especially in my age bracket when I was in school, the curriculums came out of America. The structure there. So, but I think it definitely came just down to a choice. My parents decided that they wanted to homeschool us because they felt that there was the better environment, the better choice for us. So it's it is something that I'm grateful for. I know a lot of people growing up as I'm sure other people do, that they didn't really enjoy school, they didn't have a great time, or there's everything else that sort of goes with it, the bullying or the peer pressure or whatever it might be. So definitely fortunate to have been in that position where I was homeschooled.
Cool. So let's go deep now. Let's go. Let's step back a little bit. The universe. Do you believe it's random or non-random? Existence. How did everything happen? Was it through a random process or a non-random process? Even before the human.
I don't believe it was random. I think there's a purpose behind everything. I think there's a reason for everything. I think things happen for a reason, because they do. Again, going back to Catholic roots, obviously, we were firmly seated in the creation side of things rather than a random occurrence of events with the universe. And I still feel that's the case. But there's definitely so much that we don't know. There's so much that can be explored. There's so much that is yet to be discovered even. But I believe that things aren't necessarily random. I think everything has a purpose.
Yeah. So if the universe is non-random, something that's non-random is by definition by design.
Yes.
If the universe is by design, nothing is ever designed for no reason.
Yes.
So the question becomes, what is the design for the human being? What are we here to achieve?
True. It depends on what level you're, what is the human being here to achieve? I mean, in their lifetime, in a human lifetime, it's about, living well, having an impact, helping, move generations forward. But then the question, I suppose, becomes, what's the purpose?
Right. So if the meaning of life is to have impact, to move the generation forward, to be a good person, why would the universe be created for that reason? What benefit would it serve the universe?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts?
Brother, if you get me going on this, we'll be on it.
Opening up a Pandora's box.
It's not a Pandora's box. I mean, I understand it, but it's definitely it would be unfair to kind of explain it in 5 or 10 minutes. But I wanted to get your perspective just to see where you are in terms of mindset. So, so if there is this higher power, if there is this intentionality behind the universe, what is that higher power?
Yeah, and look, I think this is an area where I, subconsciously am sitting on the fence almost, for want of a better phrase, in terms of who is the higher power? Does the higher power exist? And I think there's definitely some indecisiveness there, even in myself, around that. I feel as I get older, the self-awareness that I have lends me to lean towards being more of a spiritual person than a religious person, if that kind of makes sense. But in terms of, is there a higher power? Who is that higher power? What's the reason for that existence?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you break that down, the difference between a spiritual person and a religious person would be that the spiritual person is excluding themselves from some sort of organized religion. Would that be the difference?
Probably not. I think the spiritual side of things is more about being connected to yourself, connected to the environment, connected to the universe. Looking deep, looking internally, meditation, mindfulness. Whereas religion obviously is all based around a particular faith, a particular belief.
But isn't the same thing if you are focusing on certain practices, whether it's meditation or an approach? It's the same thing. You've just developed.
It's true. And I also, I've always said that even somebody who doesn't have a religion, or claims not to follow any religion, still has a religion, because you still have a belief set, right? You still you believe in something. So,
right. Or even not believing in anything is a religion, right? So the religion,
100%.
is basically that kind of placeholder to address the question of what is the meaning of life. So religion can be atheism, or it can be science, or it can be humanism, or it could be the traditional religion.
Correct.
Right?
Agree.
So if you recognize that the universe has intentionality, I'm just trying to understand how you correlate or sync in with that understanding of intentionality. If you're aware that the universe has been created for a reason, that there is reason in the universe, then how do you sink in or attach behind the reason or reasoning? Otherwise, your belief in the fact that the universe is intentional is irrelevant, because whether it is or it isn't, your modus operandi isn't attached to that, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a very good point. I think there is a certain level of disconnect there, and it's a very interesting topic to dive into and unravel even further around the belief system, I suppose, there, and really pinpointing those beliefs and making those connections.
I mean, you almost are moving away from what you were raised as, right? So they were certainly more traditional. They had pretty much, a set way of doing things. They saw the rule book and they followed the rule book, right? You're detached from that perspective to the degree that you doubt some of the things or all of the things in relation to the practices, right?
Yes. I think it's my rule book is slightly different. Is different. I suppose, as we mentioned before, like everybody has a rule book in a sense. They're just all different versions. So I suppose my version now is different to what it was, or different to my parents' version. And what we were experienced and what we were exposed to growing up.
What are you going to teach your kids?
We're going to teach. We already do teach our kids. the practices that we are implementing ourselves now around, self-awareness and meditation, breathing, controlling your state of being. And that's something that was definitely not a part of my upbringing, in a sense, right? It's not...
How did you access it? How did you get this kind of awareness or knowledge? Was it part of the fitness program? People...
No, I think it's more just because it's becoming more widely, being exposed to it more often. I think obviously because of the way that, we live in a global community now, right? Meditation as a whole is becoming more popular in society because it's being broadcast more, right? More people are becoming meditation teachers and trainers, and, there's just easier ways to access it. And I think because of that, and wanting to be someone who is a high performer, trying to tap into any area possible in order to, achieve levels of high performance, whether it's diet or, sleep, meditation, whatever it is. So, it's immediately something that appealed to me in, all the benefits that it has. And that's obviously what we want to be passing on to our children as well, around, being able to, control their emotions and control their environment in a sense, so that, as they grow up, they have these skill sets, ingrained in order to handle themselves better as a human being.
So let's break down a couple of points that you mentioned. You talked about the idea of high performance. Why? And you talked about the idea of impact. Why do we as humans need to be high performing or have impact?
I think, again, like it's each to their own, and I think everybody has a different perspective on high performance. But in terms of, the catchphrase that it is these days, I think it's more around a mindset of, internal motivation and drive and, wanting to achieve things. So I think the whole high performance thing is just a way to classify that in a sense.
But I'm sensing it to be the same thing. High performance and achieving is the same terminology for me. And I'm just trying to understand whether this is something that you're doing because you want to do it, or it's something that is cultural. It's almost the equivalent of the new religion, and you're doing it because you haven't questioned it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. But myself, like internally, I'm not someone, like I am someone that's fairly driven, I don't sit around, not that there's anything wrong with that, but, I'm not someone who, plays video games or
so let's turn it around. Let's just say if you had a magic wand in a scenario, in a fantasy scenario, if you had a magic wand and you could do and be and become anything that you wanted to, what would you be?
Exactly who I am.
You weren't guaranteed to fail.
Exactly who I am. I think if there was a magic wand to to help me achieve the things that I wanted to achieve in life, I'm very comfortable with where I'm at. Very grateful for where I'm at. So I think,
because there's a contradiction in that, right? Because you're saying you want to be a high performer, you want to achieve. That means you're setting direction to something that you want that you're currently not. Do you get what I'm saying?
True. So I suppose if there was a magic wand, it'd be about being able to, to achieve those the end goals, or the objectives that we do have.
End goals. What does that vision look like? What's happening to you at the age 60? What are you doing?
The age of 60, I am enjoying copious amounts of time with my family, experiencing everything the world has to offer. Hopefully the goal will have been to help many other people and many businesses along the way, whether it's investments and that type of thing, and have the things that I want to have at that period in my life, which is the freedom and the finances to give my family the things that they want, and really be able to experience what the world has to offer.
If you meditate, do you need to believe in something bigger or greater than yourself?
I think it depends on the type of meditation that you're doing. And I mean, there's obviously meditation practices go back to the year dot, but there are meditation practices where it is more about tapping into the spiritual side, or the higher power, the higher being, right? For me, at this period, meditation is more around the controlling of my immediate environment, reducing stress, increasing clarity, helping me to become a more centered person, I suppose, rather than tapping into, the higher powers, for instance.
Right. So there's like 3 levels as I see it. Like level 1 is your natural state. You've got your basic instinct and your urges, right? So you're moving from level 1 and you're going to level 2. Level 2, you're developing the practices of meditation, and you're trying to center and hold emotions and be rational, right? Stage 3 really is about connecting to your understanding of the fact that the universe is non-random. If the universe is non-random, that means you have to substantiate how you believe the universe to be non-random. Making assumptions that you believe that the universe is non-random because there are properties and values, there's order, there's patterns to the universe, there seems to be some sort of design, right? If there are patterns to the universe, surely those are truths, and one would want to sink in or find a mechanism of sinking in and aligning to those patterns, because those represent truth. So if in that truth, then the idea is about being as opposed to trying to achieve, then if in that pattern you are meant to achieve, then you will achieve, because you're now like a surfboarder, like a surfer. You're riding the wave instead of trying to get ahead of the wave, or trying to, you're being back because the wave is going in a different direction. You can say?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's another level. I think it's the future of the journey that we're on, or I'm on, in discovering that, in connecting those dots, in really becoming clear around what all that is and what it means to me. So
The word that's very powerful for me in that scenario is that there's a word called surrender. So I think if one reflects on that word and kind of conjures up what it could mean, it's an interesting exercise. So we've got a few minutes left. I've got a couple of quick questions. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Introvert.
Rational or emotional?
Rational.
Idealistic or realistic?
Realistic.
Hands-on or intellectual?
Hands-on.
Okay. A risk taker or risk averse?
Risk taker.
Do you prefer certainty or uncertainty?
Prefer certainty. Yeah. Yes.
That's what I'd say. Damn right. That's my sense. If you were an animal, what kind of animal would you describe yourself as?
Ooh. No, I'm not going to say kangaroo. Very good question. Never really thought about it.
What are the qualities that you would possess that we would want to identify an animal through?
The qualities would include...
Let's go for the top 3.
Protective, nurturing, and... Ooh. What's the word? Leading.
Protective, nurturing, and leading. Sounds like a kangaroo, brother.
Kind of does, doesn't it?
I'm joking. Protective, nurturing. I mean, what you looking at? You know, maybe even a mother bear of some sort.
I was thinking bear. Yes. Initially, yeah, yes. Kind of, yeah. Protective, looks after its own. Has a bit of grunt behind it. Yeah.
Final question. They say you're the average of the 5 people that you most hang out with.
Yes.
So in a fantasy scenario, if you were able to choose the 5 people that you could hang out with to raise your average, who would those 5 people be, past, present, or future?
Something that I say all the time, and I probably haven't given this particular question enough thought. 5 people. Steve Jobs. Oh, see, this is tough. This is tough. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. I'm trying to think of somebody who I resonate with who is past, other than Steve Jobs. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Mother Teresa, Einstein, and thinking of a 5th. It's going to sound really random, but Gary Vaynerchuk.
Okay. Oh, I'm sure he'd have fun with all the other 4, right? Let me ask you a final question. Final. What does success mean to you?
Success to me means being able to live life on my own terms, and support the ones that mean the most to me. Because I think there's a lot of there's a narrative out there that, you know, everybody needs to follow their passion and do what they love, and it's not that easy. You know, it's, you know, there's skill sets, there's dedication, there's so much that goes into that. But I think for me, you know, being fortunate enough to do what I want to do what I love, and to be able to have, you know, to be able to provide for the people I need to provide for at the same time, and to be able to make it work, for me, that's success.
Cool. Any final messages, brother? I'm done.
Mate, thank you so much. This has been, never had a conversation, never had an interview quite like this before, so I really appreciate it. Look, I think, you know, final messages are, you know, especially in the world as it is at the moment, you know, we all need to stick together. We all need to look after each other. You know, regardless of what your views are on any of the topics that are around the world, we're all in this together. We all live on the one planet, and, you know, we all have a part to play in getting ourselves to the other side and pushing humanity forward. So that's the message.
Awesome. Listen, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having hanged out with me. I appreciate that as well, brother.
Really appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.